This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, June 7th, 2010, and this is episode 730 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Len Testa from touringplans.com and the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World. And I'm a man who loves Elton John just as much as the next guy. And speaking of the next guy...
And I'm Mike Scoper of allears.net. And tonight we have a special presentation of WDW Today. And Mr. Tester, would you be so kind as to tell our wonderful audience what the show is about?
We've been joking about it for almost 700 episodes, but it's finally time for the Mike Newell Radio Hour. It's a show dedicated to Mike Newell.
In all fairness, we've done this before. We've done one, but I've agreed to do this tonight because we're in layback mode because, somebody's not here.
That's right. It is so much more relaxing, isn't it?
It very much is.
I've got my smoking jacket on, and although I'm not smoking, I am hot.
You're hot. Oh, God.
I'm soaking in a bathtub.
Oh, mental picture. Sorry for all those who just drove off the road.
He's got bubbles all around the interesting parts.
He's got a smoking jacket with a pipe that blows bubbles.
Oh, it's fabulous. It is. It's nice. The air conditioning's kicked in. I had a great relaxing weekend. Just somehow knowing that this particular episode was coming up with you guys. Really, my entire weekend was really laid back.
Well, mine was too, except for yesterday when I rode 26 miles on my bike. But other than that, all that time I was riding, I was thinking, I'm all excited because tonight we're going to talk to Mike Newell.
And what are you going to talk to me about?
This is your life.
Yeah, this is my life. I was born on November 11th, 1967, at 2:42 a.m.
Were you really?
At Westchester Square Hospital in the Bronx. Yes, I was.
Oh, fabulous. So Mike, it seems like we barely talk about you. That is, what got you interested in Walt Disney World theme park audio, and what was the first audio file that you remember downloading from the internet or getting and thinking, "Wow, this is really something"?
What got me into the whole music biz, as you say, was when I first went back to Walt Disney World in 1992 after a 12-year absence and went to Epcot for the very first time. And when you first walked into the front gates, there's that theme music that they play. And my first ride or attraction at Epcot ever was Spaceship Earth. And it's going to sound corny, but Tomorrow's Child, the music, blew me away. And that's what started it.
Fabulous. And so what was the first piece of theme park audio that you actually remember collecting and thinking, I'm going to start a collection with this?
Well, back then, there really wasn't much to collect. You had to get it yourself. There wasn't like a site that you can download them from. There was a handful of us that actually went out and got them ourselves, and we brought them to life. And that's the difference between what's out there today and what we did back, in the early 90s, is that we were hiding in the bushes and we had the shotgun microphones and we would capture all the stuff. And now it's just so easy to download that anyone and everyone has their own stations now. But back in the day, it was more of a challenge.
Oh, that's great. And so you would record this on what kind of equipment? Cassette tape? You're walking around with a cassette tape?
Nah, you're going to laugh, but I had one of those shoulder camcorders, the full-size VHS camcorder.
Oh, yeah.
With Mary's yelling at me, and she's right. She was in the bushes. That's where that whole freaking bush joke comes from.
That's right. And were you wearing tube socks with this? So you were walking with
Yes.
your large VHS?
Yes, I was. Probably there's a picture of me with long
Awesome.
hair and tube socks up to my knees.
So was Epcot the park that you primarily concentrated on? Was that your?
Oh yeah, for the first few years, absolutely. I wanted to get everything out of Epcot. The other parks really, studios and Magic Kingdom second because I love Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland was my audio from, but primarily was Future World and Epcot.
So, Mike, when you started capturing this music, did you capture it on a camcorder?
Yeah, the big camera I had an audio input, and that was what I was carrying around anyway to do video. So I wound up using that as my primary source. It was, a little primitive back in the day. It was mono. It wasn't very good, but it was something that I had. They didn't have the little pocket digital recorders we have today, so I was able to use that, and I did pretty good with that. I was able to capture some really cool stuff, and as the internet progressed, more of the source audio started to leak out, and people would download that or upload it, and then there was a little. I remember one of the news groups. There was a couple of news groups actually, in the mid '90s when we were downloading at 56K.
Yeah, 56K.
And
this is like the alt music or alt Disney.
Disney
news groups.
Yeah, and that you go in there and there was all kinds of stuff, and it would take days to download. And then when Napster came around, all that stuff wound up on Napster, and we just went crazy. And we started uploading stuff, and they would take whatever we uploaded, and we just download stuff. And there was a little group of us that actually did that. It was quite fun.
Now, what was Mouse World Radio was not the original name.
No, it was not.
the Mike Mill Radio
time for a
Hour.
little trivia. No, can I take a guess?
Yes, go ahead.
I think I read somewhere that it was called Disney Park Audio.
That was the site that I ran at the time, was the Disney Park Audio page. It was one of those very basic. Well, if you follow Mouse Radio, it was kind of the same site until about a year ago. But that was on Prodigy. I had hosted that on Prodigy. That was just really quick, real audio files that I had made out of stuff that I had collected for the first few years. Because with the 56K download speed, you couldn't download an hour loop. So you would put up these little clips and 30-second clips, and that was much more easier to download. So that's what that site was about. Mouse Radio didn't come about till about 1999. When Live 365 went online, and it was an easy way to upload all kinds of MP3s to a server, and the server would then randomly play those MP3s to mimic a radio station. And that's basically what it still does, except it's a lot more expensive, and it's a lot more difficult to do than it was back in 1999.
But when you opened up that account on Live 365, was it called Mouse World Radio or was it called something else?
It was called the Disney World Network, and that ran from 99 to about 2002, when Live 365 was handed a cease and desist from the Walt Disney Company to get rid of all Disney branded stations. So they
Really?
Yeah, they did a mass shutdown of all the stations at the time. There was about 50 stations at the time, and they got us all. They shut us all down. With the one speculation that you can come back if you changed the
Name.
title of the title of the broadcast to a non-copywritten protected. So Mouse
Yeah,
Radio
here's-
was born then.
Mouse World Radio was born then. Fabulous. The obviously you started in Epcot. You went to the Magic Kingdom second. What park or what place do you think has the best current music? Like what do you think about Mission Space's background music as compared to say some of the older stuff?
Mission Space is interesting. It's hard for me to say that I love it because I loved Horizons so much, and I love the music in Horizons. Horizons, for those of you who never ridden it, or for those of you who never rode it, is just incredibly beautifully scored. And if you hear it on Mouse Radio, I know there's a lot of it, and you hear it over and over and over again. But when it's all put together into one piece, and all those little tracks, there must have been about 30 different tracks, and when they were blended together as you rode along, that 20 minutes of attraction, it blended together so beautifully, and it fit perfectly that it was just so good. So when those leaked out, I never take credit for any of that because that was a source audio that came out. That was like finding the Holy Grail. You found that, and you're like, whoa, this is. And then when they tore down Horizons, you're like, oh, now at least I have something that I can
from it.
Yeah. And that was just awesome to hear. And it was mono. It was very badly mixed. But it whoever had the source must have redid it and released it again because they came out better and they were stereo. And
So for our listeners who aren't familiar with the term, the source audio is the one that Disney actually uses for the ride. And what Mike is saying is that apparently through the magic of the internets, some of the actual high quality Disney audio used from the ride managed to leak out onto the web. I know sometimes it happens, but for those of us that for those of you that have it, it's a treasure.
It really is. And when you find something that you really like, because I love Spaceship Earth, I loved Horizons, the music from the land, all that stuff when that came out, it was like, it was like finding gold. It was just so exciting. It was almost like, going to Vegas, and you would get online and you'd log in to your 56K modem. You're like, okay, what am I going to find today? What's going to be out there today?
That's the thing. Yeah, you could find almost anything. I remember the thing that really got me interested in background audio and trying to find it was when the Walt Disney World Explorer DVD or CD came out.
Right.
And they had like this 2-minute WAV file.
Yes.
Of theme park audio. And I remember the Adventureland background. I thought, well, this is amazing. That that they've got the entire they've got 2 minutes of Adventureland. It feels like I'm there. And then I think it was you or somewhere on Master Wolf Radio. They play the entire 44-minute Adventureland background loop, and it's nothing but the drums, the tiki drums.
And like I said, a lot of that came out of guys like me that started at the beginning, sitting on a bench with a wire going into the into the bushes, with a microphone strapped to one of those, dug in ground speakers, and a lot of that came out from stuff like that. As technology progressed and things leaked out, and then they released the Walt Disney World Forever CDs, and that was
that was crazy.
That was a big score. I remember being in we had chat rooms at the time, and when they released those, that was like, wow, I can't believe they're releasing all these CDs. And although they were quite pricey, it was like I hate to use the term, but it was like, finding gold and saying, oh, I'll pay so much for this,
I actually found a bunch of mine that I had brought to work and I had packed away in a box, and I'd moved, 16 times. But I found them last week, and I had like one entire Carousel of Progress CD with all of the audio, in CD quality format. And I did one of nothing but Tomorrowland background music, and I did one of, essentially every ride or every land got its own CD, and I probably had 18, 20 of them.
It's funny you bring that up, because like the land, let's take the land for example. There are so many separate tracks that go with that attraction. The same goes for like the Living Seas. There were so many separate tracks. You think maybe it's just one song that plays over and over, but there was so many different tracks that it took just to get one attraction running. Like a perfect example is the old World of Motion. How many different versions of It's Fun to Be Free were out?
Were you the one that told me that they had an intern do nothing but different versions of that for their summer job?
I didn't say that, but I heard that same story. But it's so true. They had so many different attractions, so many different tracks, just for that one song. And if you hear it over and over again, it does get a little tiring. But you can't believe, like, especially in those Omni Ride moving attractions, every time you went to a different scene, there was a different track played.
Yeah.
So you went to Egypt. There was an Egypt version of It's Fun to Be Free.
Yeah.
So you don't realize how many different times and how many different takes of music's out there just for one attraction.
It's amazing. What do you think about the Animal Kingdom for background music? What do you think about Asia? I think it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not my favorite. That's something I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to capture, but it fits the area, so it fits perfectly.
Hey, Mike, when you talk about music and audio and stuff, if you were to pick the park that has the best audio system, and that is, as you're walking through, you can hear music as clear as possible. It's loud enough. It's clear enough. I mean, do you have any preference as to which park you think does that the best?
Probably Epcot. What Disney does really well is that when you walk around, as you move through different lands, the music changes with the land, and it's very gradual. You don't notice it until you look for it. If you walked from country to country in World Showcase, when you're walking between China and Norway, the two types of music are so different. I mean, Chinese music is so different from Norwegian music, but it sort of just flows. Like it gradually comes down, and the other country gradually comes up as you approach it. It's just amazing that it does that, and it adds to the show. It's something that you don't really see because you don't notice because you don't see it, but it's there, and it adds so much to where you are, where you happen to be in the world at the time.
Yeah, speaking of audio that reminds you of being in the park, there's a clip of Illuminations that a guy named Martin, I forget his last name.
Oh, Martin, the video guy.
Yeah,
from England.
he did one of Illuminations, and it's got like it's about a 40-minute clip, and it's got people talking before it, so it's an actual in-park audio recording.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the background, the pre-show music essentially for the old version, or the old pre-show music for Illuminations. Then it's got all of the announcements saying 5 minutes to Illuminations,
Right.
and then it has all of Illuminations, and then it has the post Illuminations audio as well. I think, and it's perfect. I don't know how he mixed it. I don't know how many times he had to sit there and get or combine different versions of it. I don't know where he got the audio from. To me, that is actually the definitive recording of Illuminations for two reasons. One is Disney's never going to release anything that's an hour long like that one.
Right.
But number two, you can actually hear people kind of walking around and stuff, so it really does feel like you're in the park.
It adds to the ambience. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Disney has never released a version of Illuminations that is as good as that, because you hear the fireworks too, you have the music. It's just, and it sounds like you're there. It doesn't sound like it's pitch perfect, like it would if it was digitally remastered and thrown on a CD. It sounds imperfect, like you were actually there.
Nobody does video better than Martin. He
Yeah.
puts together some of the best video, and not only just video, but he mixes the audio to go alongside it, and nobody does it better than him. If you ever get a chance to see some of his stuff, it's worth downloading.
So if we're going to Google, Martin Smith. Yeah, so just
Martin
Google
Smith, yes.
Martin Disney video. Just Google it. See what you got.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Do you see maybe someday, maybe Live 365 will have streaming video maybe?
I don't think Live 365 so much, because it costs a heck of a lot to run bandwidth for streaming video.
Yeah.
Sites like Ustream and some of those other sites are kind of taking that over. So I don't see Live 365 as being a viable source in video. They're mostly known for radio. But and this is it's funny, because I was looking at an article that Mike did on me and on Mouse Planet back in a few years ago. One of the things that he had asked me if there was anything that I thought might be in the future down the road, and I said I would love to have a mobile version of Live 365 or a mobile version of Mouse World Radio where you can actually drive around in your car and listen to it. And we've come and gone with that. It's just amazing how many people listen mobily now. And I think that as time goes on and Wi-Fi becomes more readily available, you're going to start seeing these stations, not just Mouse World Radio, but any kind of these smaller stations, those niche stations, hitting a target audience. And I'm happy with where I am with Mouse World. I love the audience. I think it's a great audience. They're very loyal. They're very dedicated. And for people to go out of their way to tune in, really makes me happy.
I mean, you're most of my 2 gig bandwidth on the AT&T network.
AT&T must love you.
Yeah, I mean, so I looked at my my usage, and I use about 1.86 of my 2 gig is Mouse World Radio during the day, or I'll just leave it streaming on Mouse World 2. I'm going to switch down to Mouse World 4.
Yeah, it's a 32-bit.
32-bit, yeah, it's a little bit better. So
yeah. It's mono. That was designed for a dial-up, and there still seems to be an audience.
The one thing I will say on that is, I was listening to Mouse World 4 today when I was outside weeding the yard. It was you'll get into it like I think you're playing the Dixie Landings resort background music, and it's it was all Southern music for like an hour. I was like, okay, it was Susanna. All right, let's try it again. It was great. It was fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's a love-hate. I'm not going to say that it's all been fun. Getting a cease and desist is not fun when you love to do something. But, there's always been an audience for it. And as long as the audience is there and they want to listen to it, I'm going to provide it.
That's great.
And as long as Mouse World Radio is there, we're going to be listening. I have it on my iPad. I have 2 apps on my iPhone that I listen to it all the time. And then, Mike, on behalf of everyone out there who is a person always in need of a Disney fix, I want to thank you for all your work. And I'm sure that everyone echoes my sentiments, saying that we appreciate everything you've been doing to help us handle our Disney fix in between trips.
Thanks, man. It's been a fun hobby for the last few years, so I'm having fun with it.
So, Len, you want to bring us home on this show?
All right, this has been episode 730 of Walt Disney World Today. For Mike Scopa and Mike Newell, Matt Hochberg, and Annette Owens, I am Len Testa, and we'll see you on the next show.
Matt who?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.